Hello, welcome to Local Anesthetic Podcast, the most trusted name in local news. No, we don't say that anymore. It is, what is it? Your weekly injection of mind-numbing local news. And after that debacle, Rob, I want to start off, before I introduce Rob properly and say what episode this is, I want to apologise for all the listeners to Daft Talk last episode, because those sort of people who listened very carefully have noticed that we had two episode 21s, Rob, because last Daft Talk was episode 22, but we called it episode 21, and that's a big mistake, Rob, in the audio broadcasting world.
Alex, they don't care.
They don't care, Rob, but I care. That, you know, somebody that,
Okay.
You know, we could lose listeners over this. But look, to get the numbering completely correct, this is Local Anesthetic Podcast, Rob and I's other podcast, and this is episode 331. That's absolutely correct, isn't it, Rob?
It is. Yes, I can confirm that. I've checked the website.
And before, Rob, we just, commiserate the departure of Trump, I should just inform the listeners, because it has relatively big news for me personally, I guess, was that I had a positive COVID test, but I've just reached my 10 days of self-isolation. I feel like I'm over the worst of it now. But I actually we did record Daft Talk, Rob, with me not knowing at that point that I had COVID. So if anybody could have told, been able to suspect over the airwaves, then give that person a job, because they're obviously highly attuned to all things COVID.
Absolutely. I don't know whether I should wish you congratulations. Is that what you say to someone who has COVID? I mean,
no,
you didn't seem massively affected by it, thank God. But I'm very glad you're on the mend.
Yeah, so far I didn't get, and thus far I didn't get anything major, but I did. I mean, it hasn't been pleasant. I'll put it like that. But it hasn't been. I think as long as you sort of ride it out without any of the sort of horror stories you hear other people going through, you've got to count yourself lucky, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very pleased to hear that you are on the mend. We are hearing some really horrible things, obviously, with the death rates increasing on a daily basis. But we won't focus on that. This is we want to try and keep it light.
I must say I felt a sort of twinge of sadness, Rob, and I want to say why, because I'm being really honest here. I know it goes against the grain, but the twinge of sadness I felt was that I guess there's been something about the last 4 years that's been fairly riveting. This is the reality TV show President, and there was a sense that this great big grand reality TV show, shit show, was coming to an end. And do you know what I mean? It's a bit like, you're watching some reality TV show that's absolutely putrid and crass, but you kind of get hooked by it, and when it finishes, you're kind of sad.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I'm trying to think how you phrase this. I mean, at the very, very least, Trump has been entertaining. I hate that. That's probably the greatest compliment I can pay to him, really. And I think it's also worth remembering that Trump is a symptom. He's not.
No.
He's a product of what's unfortunately the culture in the US and the. Anyway, let's not get into that now. But yeah, I kind of know what you mean. It's going to be and especially in the last couple of weeks, I've been watching far too much CNN, as I mentioned, I think on Daft Talk. Let me just move the cat out of the way. Come on. Oh, sorry. Careful. There we go. I've been watching a lot of CNN, and I did wonder whether I would. I think now things. I mean, they're far from being perfect, but I do wonder whether I'd still have the same enjoyment from watching it, because. Again, it just felt like after watching the inauguration yesterday, things were it felt like a ship that was very slowly, a ship that had been listing quite considerably, is slowly inching its way back to an even keel.
Yes, that's a nice metaphor, Rob. I know you've probably got some news. Before you do it, Rob, this is a story I'm kind of half featuring just because it's only so short, but you remember the attack at the Capitol. Did you hear the story about Chuck Norris?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that apparently he had to deny that he was there. I mean, I have to say, because apparently it was a lookalike. It does look like him, though, I think. It did. It's almost uncanny.
He had to send out a tweet saying, I recently learned there was a Chuck Norris lookalike at the DC Capitol riots. It wasn't me, and I wasn't there. There is no room for violence of any kind in our society, despite his notoriously violent films, of course. I am and always will be for law and order. Your friend, Chuck Norris.
Which is very strange because he's come out as a Trump supporter. So
Yeah.
I think it was him. I'll go on record of saying that.
Okay. Me and Rob aren't sort of affiliated in any way apart from this podcast and our friendship, but he's entitled to his own views. Right, Rob, is there any news?
Yeah, just a few bits. So Alex and I had a chat prior to this podcast because, as always, we couldn't remember when we spoke about something, despite it being recorded and evidenced. Because Steve got in contact with me in regards to our story about the vending machine, whereby we took great pleasure in playing a practical joke whereby we would, after purchasing from the vending machine, due to the mechanism on the machine, it allowed us to then put something in its place. So you took out a chocolate bar, you put in a tiny dinosaur, for instance.
We used to call that vending machine the carousel of shit because it worked on this sort of parallel mechanism, and so anybody arriving at the vending machine would find very shitty items inside, like Rob said, a toy dinosaur, a mouldy apple, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So Steve contacted me and said, I was recording your anecdote about placing things in the vending machines with the automatic window door closing mechanism. Yes. I've been surveying the one at work. The little window is open for at least 10 seconds. If I could shrink a patient, I'm quite sure I'd have ample time to squeeze one in.
How long do you reckon it's open for?
10 seconds.
Well, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough time to get your hand in there, get your hand out, and leave in there a shitty item. Come on, and then take pictures of it for us. We might start a worldwide trend, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I would say, please do not try and shrink down patients. That seems like some sort of weird experiment that shouldn't be happening.
Shrink what?
And I think you missed that last line. He basically said, if I could shrink a patient, I'm pretty sure I'd have ample time to squeeze one in.
When he says shrink a patient, what does that mean?
Have you forgotten his job, Alex?
Steve,
Quite clearly you have.
No, I thought Steve worked in a funeral parlour.
Well, okay, patient, corpse, same thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah. Okay. The carousel of corpses.
I mean, you could always just sever off a digit and put that in there.
You certainly, Rob. Why did we never think about that? It would have been your finger. I mean,
that's the problem. It would have been my finger. Of course, it would have been. Yeah.
Or anyway, a penis, even, Rob.
Well, I've only got one of those, so I can probably spare a finger.
A ball?
Yeah, possibly a ball, maybe an ear, possibly an eye. You know, unfortunately, Alex and I are no longer working in that building, so we'll never find out. So a few bits of news, also both from Steve on the listener forum. So Steve commented on the 9th of Jan, basically saying, yada, 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 still no restaurant here, mainly normal hygiene rating. Now, you can probably guess this relates to a certain restaurant in Norwich. And he has posted an image of what I'm assuming is from the Eastern Daily Press, probably, or the Norwich paper, with the headline, "Man who denies running restaurant..." Sorry. I love this guy. "Man who denies running restaurant in home given food hygiene rating."
Right, so his restaurant, Orlando's, which he runs out of his home, which he's been telling people for years, the council and everything, is not a restaurant. He's now applied for a food hygiene safety rating. What did he get for the food hygiene safety rating?
See, this is the problem, Alex. I've only got the snapshot. Steve, we need to know what his food hygiene rating was.
Oh, God, yes.
We haven't got that.
Yeah.
And Kyber comments by saying, for his bed and breakfast, of course.
Can I just say to Steve as well, nice Seinfeld reference there with the yada, yada, yada. I appreciated that a lot.
Good. The only other thing, Steve also comments just saying, "You'll be pleased to know that in these times of unprecedented news coverage and international updates, the Grimsby Telegraph, via the excellent Grimsby Live, continues to notify me of what's going on in the Big G." And a picture of the Grimsby Live with a headline saying, "Cyclist warned of court fines as 7 more have to pay £2,700. And that's why, unfortunately, we've moved away from local news, because it's quite tedious at the moment.
You say that, Rob, but I've got some stories from local news this week. I do actually have some local news stories, some real chestnuts. What the fuck was I trying to say? Some real...
I don't know.
Well, some real Bobby Dazzlers.
I like chestnuts though. I like some. She's got some lovely. No, that sounds wrong. She's got some lovely chestnuts. That sounds wrong.
Now, Rob, you may notice, Rob, because obviously we're speaking to each other via Zoom, that you suddenly switched angles in the room that I'm recording, and it's because this is the traditional angle we record over, but I moved you to the other side of the desk, and it discombobulated me for the beginning of this podcast. I didn't like it, so I've returned you to where you are. I like you, Rob, being to my right hand side. I think if we do ever get to meet up again in future, I will only be able to sit in sort of in the vicinity of you where you are towards my upper right. Otherwise I'll just feel uncomfortable.
Which, as you know, Alex, the right hand side is quite an exalted position. If you're in the right hand side of the king, you are in the king's favour.
Okay, I'll move you back to the left.
By the way, can I just want to make sure that I'm not saying you're king in this situation. You'd be like an earl or something.
Oh, I'll take it. Right, Rob, can we crack on then with episode 331 of LA Podcast?
Yes.
Right, I love this story. It's from the Traitorous Guardian, Rob. The Traitorous Guardian.
Okay.
Oh, God, I love this story. It's just very unique. It's by Helen Sullivan from Monday the 18th of January. Did I say when we were recording for the fastidious amongst you? Because I know there are people out there who like to know and document this kind of thing. On the 21st of January, we began recording at 5 p.m, roughly. Right, headline. Man found living in Chicago airport for 3 months due to fear of COVID.
Right. Did he think that maybe the airport was somehow immune to people with COVID?
Well, listen, Rob. A man has been living in a secure section of Chicago's International Airport for 3 months, apparently telling police he was too afraid of coronavirus to return home to Los Angeles, according to multiple reports. The 36-year-old man, Californian Aditya Singh, was arrested this weekend and charged with criminal trespass to a restricted area of an airport, a felony, and theft, a misdemeanor, the Chicago Tribune reported. Prosecutors said on Sunday that according to police, the man arrived on a flight from Los Angeles to O'Hare International Airport on the 19th of October. Nearly 3 months later, Rob, on a Saturday afternoon, he was approached by 2 United Airlines employees who asked to see his identification. Singh allegedly showed them an airport ID badge that had been reported missing by its owner, an airport operations manager, on the 26th of October. So just to be clear, Rob, that was 7 days after he landed. So a good 2 months, 3 weeks into him being there.
Alex, airports, from my understanding, are supposed to be quite secure places.
What should be one of the most secure places in the world. Yes.
Exactly. How did they not know that a man was living in their airport?
Exactly. Assistant State Attorney Kathleen Haggerty told Cook County Judge Susanna Ortiz that other passengers had been giving food to Singh, who does not have a criminal background. Haggerty said Singh had found the badge in the airport and was scared to go home due to COVID. Ortiz, the judge, told the court, "You're telling me that an unauthorised, non-employee individual was living within a secure part of O'Hare Airport terminal from the 10th of October 2020 to the 16th of January 2021 and was not detected. I really need to understand you correctly." Which goes back to your point, Rob. How does this happen? Rob, how do we think he did this? Where was he? He was living in this airport, right? So
yeah.
I don't know what the backroom staff facilities of an airport look like, but where do you think he was bearing himself away? Talking of that vending machine, Rob, do you remember when we used to, with a building where Rob and I used to work, had a section that was off limits to staff and the general public? And yes. Rob and I would go, it was a basement of like a labyrinth of corridors, Rob, and sort of the heating mechanisms all going down there. And Rob and I would go down there and not make love, but just wander and find strange little rooms and alcoves and everything else. And do you remember there were some strange rooms down there where people obviously, the maintenance people obviously did spend some of their time. Do you reckon he just... how the fuck did he do this? Where was he sleeping, Rob? Help me.
First of all, Alex, I'd like to say I those were some of my happiest times when we used to walk around the basement of that building.
Same here.
It was like a Cold War bunker. It was great.
It was boiling as well, do you remember? Absolutely boiling.
Yeah, because I think, as you rightly say, I think the heating in the boiler was down there, but it did go on for quite some time. Anyway, I like the idea that he managed to break into the area where they process the suitcases. You know, where the suitcases come off the conveyor belts and then get put onto the trucks. And he'd managed to craft himself a fort out of suitcases, just maybe just in a dark corner. Because let's face it, we know how many suitcases get lost every single year. All he needs is 12 suitcases, and he's got a house.
Could he not have been waiting for the planes to be on the tarmac, the ones that were retired for the evening, and then getting on board and having a nice sleep in first class?
But, I mean, I think that's more than possible. If this guy was there for 3 months and no one managed to...
For 3 months scrounging food off people walking through the airport. So he was a beggar by day. How did nobody notice him or nobody report him?
But how did... also, this man, I'm assuming, was there saying that he was a member of staff, and no one thought it was slightly weird that a member of the apparently flight crew or member of the airport staff was apparently begging for food.
He stole somebody's flight pass 7 days into his illegal stay in the airport. I just don't understand. I mean, I understand an airport is big, but how the fuck did they not track this guy down? All they had to do was line up every member of staff and check all their badges. I could have done it in an afternoon, Rob.
But also, I mean, Alex, they'd obviously... I think I would be quite concerned. So this guy has obviously lost his security pass. Now, we're always told if we lose our security pass, the first thing you do is notify security and it gets cancelled. It seems like they never bothered to cancel it, so he was just given free rein at the airport.
He could have just flown away somewhere, Rob.
Yeah, he could have been sitting with the flight crew, just having chats with all the captains. God knows what's going on. Sitting in the first class lounge.
Well, anyway,
free peanuts.
After finding Singh, the United Airlines employees called 911. Police took him into custody on Saturday morning. Singh has a master's degree in hospitality. I wonder if that helped him, Rob.
Yeah, I think it would have done, Alex. Yeah, because again, he could have been in first class. He could have been serving drinks to the first class travellers, for the first class passengers.
I don't think anybody. I don't think it's alleged he went on any flights. He was hiding out, Rob, because he was scared of coronavirus.
No, but so I'm saying he was in the lounge, Alex. You know, he was serving champagne. Two for the passengers, one for him, that kind of thing. Although if you were scared of the coronavirus, probably mingling with staff or passengers is probably not a good idea.
Well, he's unemployed currently and lives with roommates in Orange, Los Angeles, according to Assistant Public Defender Courtney Smallwood. The court finds these facts and circumstances quite shocking for the alleged period of time this has occurred, said Judge Ortiz. Being in a secured part of the airport under a fake ID badge, based upon the need for airports to be absolutely secure so that people feel safe to travel, I do find these alleged actions do make him a danger to the community. Bail was set at $1,000. Should he be able to post bail, he is barred from entering the airport. It's currently under investigation, Rob.
And rightly so.
Now, there's been a lot of talk recently in the news about Bitcoin. And it's always one of those stories which can make even the best of us envious, Rob, because we all think to ourselves, oh, if only I'd invested in Bitcoin back in the day, but I wouldn't have even known how to, you know. And do you know what I mean? It's all, but anyway. Look, I've got a story here, Rob, from Wales. Now, it doesn't concern Craig, unfortunately. I did wonder as I read the story, did this happen to Craig? But it didn't. As we all know, Craig works with meat in the abattoir business. Have we heard from Craig for a while?
We haven't actually, no. Also, just to say, I think I know what this story is, because if it's this story I think it is, this isn't the first time this individual's tried this.
No, but we haven't reported on it before.
No, we haven't.
It's a great story. It is on the Traitorous Guardian again by Stephen Morris and Agency, whatever that means. Man offers Newport Council £50 million if it helps him find bitcoins in landfill.
I still love it. It's just, it is literally the Everest of optimism.
So how come we never reported on this before? His ongoing attempts to force Newport's Council. He's got a great strategy this time, I must say.
So I think we've definitely talked about Bitcoin before, because it always reminds me of our really quite devilish scheme when obviously Nigeria was suffering from hyperinflation, which we've discussed on the podcast before.
Zimbabwe,
it's not like Nigeria. Yeah, and Zimbabwe was suffering from hyperinflation, and we thought about maybe, you know, if we if we invested in some Zimbabwean currency, then we can cash in, because obviously they were issuing. I think they got to the stage where they were issuing like 1 billion Zimbabwean dollar notes. The only downside was the fact they were time limited, and so we would have lost a lot of money. Anyway, yeah, I don't know why we never reported on it, actually.
Well, we could tell people about it now, Rob. A computer engineer who claims he accidentally threw away a hard drive containing a virtual currency worth tens of millions of pounds has promised to give the local council, now this is his latest scheme, a quarter of the fortune if they help him dig it out of a rubbish tip. So he's trying to tempt them now, Rob.
The first, I can understand that. I mean, 50 million to any local authority at the moment, would not go amiss. Let's put it this way.
Oh yeah, because we should tell everybody he reckons it's worth 200 million, so they get 50.
And second of all, I'm sorry to say it, he ain't finding that fucking hard drive.
Wait, Rob, no, wait. Right, James Howells, 35, says the hard drive is his old laptop, contains bitcoins worth about £200 million, but is languishing in a landfill site in Newport, South Wales. I thought all of Newport was a landfill.
Well, Alex, that's extremely unfair, because they do have the Celtic Manor golf course, which obviously is a PGA course and is really quite beautiful. The rest of it is a shithole.
I think there's a mall there as well in the middle of the landfill, I've heard.
I wouldn't be sure about that. I mean, I think, if anything, most of those shops would have been burgled a long time ago.
Right. Anyway, Howell says both he and the council will benefit if they allow him to dig for it. But the local authority is refusing, claiming an excavation would break licensing regulations and cause environmental damage. The attitude of the council does not compute, James Howell said. It just does not make sense. Howell says he threw out the hard drive in the summer of 2013 when he's clearing out his desk. I had 2 identical hard drives and I threw out the wrong one, he said. I have to laugh about it now. Now I want to pick him up on this. If you know you've got Bitcoin in a hard drive and you've got 2 identical ones, wouldn't you just plug them both in and check which is which before chucking one out?
Absolutely you would. Also, I would also take issue with the fact that he says he just laughs about it. He doesn't laugh about it. He may start off laughing, but I'm assuming he breaks down to tears soon after that.
He has repeatedly appealed to Newport City Council for help in recovering the machine and has now offered it a 25% share if workers can pluck it out. He believes that even after all this time, the hard drive would still be in good enough working order. He says the outside case might be rusted, but the inside disk where the data is stored, there should be a good chance that it still works. Howell says he has financial backing from a hedge fund to pay for the search, so the council would not be out of pocket, and he has a plan. He says the way the landfill operated in 2013 was that when a general waste bin was full, it was given a serial number, it was dragged off to the open pit, and it was buried. It was also given a grid reference number. So, he says, in a Baldrick-type scheme, Rob, if I could access the landfill records, I could identify the week that I threw the hard drive away, so I could identify the serial number of the bin that it was in, and then I could identify where the grid reference is located.
Okay, well, that for me, that sounds like that immediately narrows down the search quite considerably.
But a spokeswoman for the council said Newport City Council has been contacted a number of times since 2014 about the possibility of retrieving a piece of IT hardware said to contain bitcoins. The cost of digging up the landfill, storing and treating the waste could run into millions of pounds without any guarantee, and this is the key point, of finding it or it still being in working order. The council has told Mr. Howells on a number of occasions that excavation is not possible under our licensing permit, and excavation itself would have huge environmental impact on the surrounding area. We have therefore been clear that we cannot assist him in this manner. Let's be clear, Rob. Newport Council see this as a wild goose chase.
And let's be clear again, just to reiterate, this man does not see this as a laughing matter. This is a man, if he's been trying since 2014 to recover this.
Well, there was another story recently about a guy in the States, I think it is, who's got a hard drive. He's got Bitcoin on it, which is worth something like $750,000. And he can't remember the password to unencrypt it. He's tried 8 times, and he's got 2 tries left remaining. And he says he lies awake every night, and then it's destroyed. It's inaccessible forever. And he says he lies awake at night going through it. We've all been there, Rob, where you can't remember the fucking password. I mean, that would destroy you, wouldn't it?
This is like the man who buys a lottery ticket and then realise that night he's won the lottery and then realising and he's lost the ticket. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's why I always play the National Lottery online.
Exactly.
Right, Rob. There is a story we want to do about Denmark, but can we roll it over to the next episode?
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good.
Right, because I do want to cover a local news story, Rob. This is from the Liverpool Echo by Lottie Gibbons. Great name.
Yeah.
It's from the 5th of January. Now, Rob, there's probably quite a bit to discuss in this story.
Okay.
Iris, 81, left in tears, skint and alone without young Egyptian lover.
Oh, this doesn't sound good.
This Morning Star, as in the programme, Iris says she has been left skint and in tears after spending weeks away from her 36-year-old Egyptian lover. Now, there are age differences, Rob, and there are age differences, but what would possess a 36-year-old man to date an 81-year-old, Rob?
Alex, she's lonely. I mean, that's what it is. But again...
I have to say, Rob, that my eyes recently were opened when I received my latest publication here. It's called Nooks and Grannies. Get it? Instead of Nooks and Crannies. And you can see, Rob, that's the appeal. I mean, even Rob looks persuaded.
I mean, there's a lot of sagging in that magazine, Alex. I mean, it's very upsetting.
Grandma Iris Jones fears she will have little time to spend with Mohammed Ahmed Ibrahim, who she says is struggling to secure a spousal visa for the UK. The pensioner met her young lover.
Oh, God. Alex, did they meet on the internet?
Sad thing is, Rob and I know somebody who's caught up in one of these schemes, don't we, Rob? We think.
Well, Alex, we don't know that. I mean, all the clues are there. Let's just leave that there.
Yeah, okay. The pensioner met her young lover, Mohammed Ahmed Ibrahim, on Facebook. And within a matter of weeks, within a matter of minutes, the Egyptian national had professed his love. Iris arranged to fly over to Cairo to meet him in person, despite her family and friends raising concerns about the relationship. Iris first appeared on This Morning back in January, where she spoke of her dream to marry Mohammed, and she left presenters Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield stunned after detailing their sex life. Iris now says she wants... Unfortunately, it doesn't say anymore. Iris says she now wants her husband to join her at a bungalow in Somerset, as the environment in Egypt is ill-suited to her health. So she's claiming that their whole plan was for them to live in Egypt together, i.e. nothing dodgy going on, but she's now saying the climate isn't good for her health, so she wants to bring him over here. Speaking to Metro Online, Iris said, "I get days when I'm alright, and other days when I'm just crying all the time. I'm separated from someone I love. It's so hard. I haven't got time on my side. His lawyers know that. I've had to go over there 3 times and come back without him. I keep on at Mohammed to get his law firm to hurry up with the visa. I don't know what the delay is, but it's complicated." As well as loneliness, Iris says she was strapped for cash following expensive visits to Egypt. She said, "When I was over there, I was spending £50 a day on accommodation." Sounds cheap to me. "And when you work out £50 a day for 3 months, I've come back skint. Although Mohammed is an engineer, the money over there is absolutely lousy. I get more in benefits from the government here than he does in wages over there." Previously, Mohammed said he wanted to marry Iris because it was traditional to be married, but was keen to add he was well travelled and had taken many business courses, saying, "I don't need anything from Iris." So, Rob, this is pure love.
Yeah, all right. So, first of all, it sounds like they're still in contact, which is a good sign, potentially. Yeah, I don't know, Alex. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe call me a skeptic, but it just sounds like there's something slightly dodgy about this. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Yes. Anybody wants to see the picture of the two of them together, I mean, it's quite disturbing. Rob, I just want to read one short story. The Traitorous Guardian from Stoke-on-Trent. Kevin Rawlinson on the 7th of January. World's unluckiest burglars arrested after calling police by accident. This is fantastic.
How do you call the police by accident?
As pocket dials go, it's a fairly costly one. 2 suspected burglars have been arrested after accidentally calling police on themselves. Staffordshire police confirmed they arrested a 49-year-old and a 42-year-old after receiving a call from one of them, who appeared to have unwittingly sat on his phone. Officers said they listened into the call as the men carried out the burglary and could even hear their colleagues arrive to make the arrests. "I think we've just arrested the world's unluckiest burglars," said Chief Inspector John Owen. They arrested 2 men in the Middleport area of Stoke-on-Trent on suspicion of burglary after receiving the suspicious call on Wednesday evening. And poking fun, as you know the police like to do, Rob, at the unlucky pair, On Twitter, Owen included a hapless image of Marv, the burglar from the Home Alone film series, in a Twitter post. So the Twitter post is of one of the Home Alone burglars with his head stuck through a cat flap, if you remember that from the movie.
Yep.
And he just says, I think we've just arrested the world's unluckiest burglars. Whilst committing a burglary, one of the bungling burglars has accidentally sat on his phone and dialed 999. We receive a call detailing all of their antics up to the point of hearing our patrols arrive to arrest them. It's not the first time a set of robbers has managed to shot themselves in, Rob, with an injudiciously placed rear end. In 2013, a pair breaking into a car in Fresno, California, managed to call the police on themselves. See, to me, Rob, whilst this is technically unintentional, I do believe that it is unconsciously deliberate. I believe it's sort of guilt, Rob, and an act. You know, it's people who want to be caught, Rob.
Quite possibly, Alex. But I mean, I think it's fair to say that, they're clearly idiots. Who burgles a house in Stoke-on-Trent? At least go to Leek.
Okay, Rob, you got some stories for us.
Yeah, 2 stories. The first one is quite short. It really does need more detail, but I did want to feature it. And the second one, if you remember... Well, we'll come on to that in a second. Anyway, so the first story is from BBC News. I did try and find a local news source, because this is Quebec related. So I was looking in Canada to see if I could find anything. Sadly not. But the story is from the 12th of January. No journalist. But the headline, husband on leash breached Quebec's COVID curfew.
Is this a sort of sexual fetish?
I don't know, actually. Well, again, I think it needed more detail. So, a couple in Canada have been fined for breaking COVID curfew rules after the woman was caught walking her husband on a leash, according to local media.
Was she trying to circumvent the rules, like with the idea that you can walk pets? We've had a few of these, haven't we?
Yeah. The woman reportedly told police that she was just out walking her dog near her home in the city of Sherbrooke in the Quebec province. On Saturday, the province imposed a nightly curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Walking a dog close to the home is one of the only acceptable reasons to be outside between these times. The pair were spotted by police around 9 o'clock on Saturday, just a short while after the new rules came into effect. They reportedly told police they were following the rules for pets. Isabel Gendron of the Sherbrooke Police Department told the local newspaper La Tribune the couple did not cooperate with the police at all. I love that, by the way. So the police obviously stopped them. She says, "What? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm walking my dog." At which point they point out, "That's not a dog. That's a human being." She says, "No, that's my dog." And then she just refuses to cooperate any further.
Yeah, I wonder if did that lead to some kind of standoff?
I think so. I mean, what I'd like to know is, did the husband remain in character throughout this?
And was she carrying a plastic bag, Rob, to pick up his excrement were he to foul himself?
Exactly.
That's the key question, Rob. Because they could have fined her for that as well. If she wasn't carrying a bag, then, she would have fallen foul of local regulations, pardon the pun.
Very, very clever. It doesn't say whether he was naked. I mean, he might, was he cocking his leg at lampposts? Was he trying to hump the police officer's legs? There's not enough details, Alex.
No, there isn't.
They were fined, by the way, 1,546 Canadian dollars.
That's quite a lot of money.
It's £893, in case anyone cares.
That's an expensive walk.
Absolutely. Now, you asked me to find this story because it was a headline from the last episode. And I've got the story, which is from... Can I remember what it was? Can you indeed?
Can you give me a clue?
It involves a woman getting married.
Didn't she marry a bench or something?
Very close. It was a suitcase, Alex.
That's it.
So this story is from the Mirror. It is from the 14th of December by Kellyanne Mills, a regular.
Maybe she was living in an airport for 3 months, slowly lost her mind, and ended up falling in love with a suitcase.
I mean, Alex, I've seen some very attractive suitcases in my time. So has to be said.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get a nice Samsonite, the curves on one of those. Whoa.
Well, it's funny you say that, Rob, because I did receive, I won't share it with you right now, one of my other niche publications is very much to do with luggage.
Yeah, but my concern is when you say niche publications, it's just a suitcase magazine that you've been masturbating over.
Yeah.
Right, okay, good. So by Jasmine Mills, by Kellyanne Mills and Jasmine Kalatska. That's probably pronounced really badly. Headline: Woman 24 who is sexually attracted to objects marries love of her life briefcase.
Is this the woman we've covered before? Do you remember I covered a story about a woman who's in love with a chandelier?
Yeah,
properly in love. There is a syndrome, isn't there, where you're sexually attracted to objects?
There's a woman obviously who married the Berlin Wall. I think they got divorced. There must be a joke there. Yeah. Hang on. Yeah. There's a woman who married the Berlin Wall. Unfortunately, it all fell apart.
Yeah, and then she got the hell out of there when she found David Hasselhoff straddling her lover.
I mean, if that was me, I would have just stayed. Especially with that jacket he was wearing with his light bulbs on. Whoa. Anyway,
that was a fire hazard.
It was, yeah. I mean, I think they, in East Germany they had bigger things to worry about.
Imagine if his jacket had just gone up in flames and he just immolated right there and then. Now that would have been something to remember.
I mean, Alex, we're talking about the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was quite a memorable occasion for many people.
Yeah, but I think it would have made it more memorable. That's all I mean.
Yeah, the Berlin Wall and the night that the David Hasselhoff burned to death.
Yeah.
So, a woman says she is romantically attracted to objects, has opened up about her marrying a briefcase, and says her new husband is the love of her life. I do like her name, by the way. Rain Gordon. Rain as in the weather.
Her name is Rain Gordon.
Yeah, Rain Gordon.
What's the suitcase called? Trevor.
The suitcase's name, by the way, is Gideon.
Right, of course it is.
Hopefully named after George Osborne. So Rain Gordon says she always felt captivated by objects, and this eventually grew into a romantic and even sexual attraction. She tied the knot with a suitcase who is named Gideon in a ceremony last year officiated by a pal.
Can you describe this suitcase for me? I mean, is it attractive? Or is it just a bog standard?
It is a nice suitcase, Alex. It is a metal suitcase which has those metal suitcases that have like the kind of bobbly exterior. They look really quite well made.
Right. So because I'm thinking it'd be going to be quite cold to the touch, but maybe the knobbles help when she's doing whatever she's doing. Yeah,
I think, Alex, everyone knows that obviously metal does conduct heat. So I think after maybe a couple of, God knows what she's doing to it, I imagine it would warm up. So I think if you just stick it in the oven for a couple of minutes, it'd be fine. So the 24-year-old said that although she has had a relationship with men in the past, she was always more attracted to objects than to people, and she's always happier in her relationships with objects. The woman first met her future husband back in August 2015 after purchasing him at a hardware store as a prop for a photo shoot.
Rob used to be a registrar. True story. That's not a joke. Would you have officiated a ceremony between a woman and a briefcase?
Alex, I love the fact that whenever we have weird marriages, like the woman who married the pirate ghost, the man obviously who married the sex doll. I just have to say, unless it is human, or unless the partner is human, is what I meant. It is not legally binding in this country, and obviously there has to be certain degrees of separation. So you can't marry your sister, you can't marry your brother or your parents. There has to be at least. I think the closest you can get is first cousins. Rob,
where does this couple reside?
I think
is it this country?
No, I think it's Germany. I sure have read that before. It does actually say in the article. I'm sure. I have a feeling I think it's from a German paper, but I can't see it in the article. So she said,
"Is that why you mentioned the Berlin Wall earlier? How did the Berlin Wall ever crop up in our conversation?"
Because the woman who married the Berlin Wall.
Ah, yes.
Obviously has a similar condition, and I think there was also a woman who married the Eiffel Tower.
You can understand that, though, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a massive phallus.
Yeah.
She said that as time went on, she felt herself falling in love with the briefcase. By the way, there is pictures of her in her wedding dress. There's pictures of her caressing the briefcase on a bed.
Hang on a minute. Give me the headline. Give me the headline so I can see. I've got to see this. Come on.
So, woman 24 who is sexually attracted to objects marries love of her life briefcase. Oh, Moscow. Sorry, it's Russia. I do apologise. There we go.
Oh, it's very different than I thought it was a suitcase. No, it's a briefcase.
Yeah, it's a good-looking briefcase.
So there's a very small... Right, this is bizarre. And they've got pictures of her sort of cuddling it, and there's a picture of her in... I mean, it's not really much of a wedding dress, is it? I mean, she's just put on a stand... Like, it looks like some sort of white trench coat, and then she just put a veil on. And there are pictures of her, like, lying in bed next to it, yeah.
Yeah, I particularly like the picture of what looks like her resting her nose on the briefcase.
Yes.
Just to give you a bit more, nursery teacher Rain said her relationship became official a few months later in November 2015, and the rest is history, with the pair finally tying the knot in June this year. Rain from Russia, Moscow, said, "My fascination with objects began at the age of 8. From my childhood, I believed that a soul is embedded in objects, as well as everything around us. I believe in animism, which I'm guessing is the love of inanimate objects, which means that there is life in everything. During my childhood and early teens, I fell in love with places such as the new shopping centre that opened in my city. I knew it was wrong and beyond the norms of society. I didn't tell anyone. Alex, this is forbidden love."
What's in the briefcase?
That's not for you to know, Alex.
A collection of sex toys.
No. Alex, look. It's like saying, what's in you, Alex? What's in the briefcase is not for you to know. This is between her and Gideon.
What's in me is a collection of sort of blood vessels, fat, I guess, to some degree, flesh, Rob.
I mean, Alex, it could be the same for the briefcase. I mean, if it does, it's taken a very dark turn. Can I just say, by the way, she did say that Gideon is more than just a partner. He is a husband, a friend, and a mentor. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't say that what he's mentoring her in, but it would be nice to know. We shared our first hug and kiss. I'd like to look at him for hours and feel his presence. After another few months in November, the relationship begun. We shared our first hug and kiss, and we spent more time together in the evenings and nights. We could have... I mean, again, I really worry about this. We could have philosophical conversations for 3 or 4 hours.
So it's just her in a briefcase, and her talking to herself for 3 hours about Descartes.
But I've never found myself with a person who could overshadow my attraction and fill my heart in the same way as I feel with Gideon. I was with a man in 2017. The relationship lasted 2 years, but didn't end well. He discovered my addiction to objects, and this was one of the reasons why we broke up. So
he came home, discovered her in bed with his beard trimmer, and it all went downhill from there.
Exactly, yeah. And as they've already alluded to, after 5 years, Rain and Gideon got married in June this year, and the pair each have special wedding rings with individual engravings on them.
Where's his ring?
It's on her hand as well. So if you scroll down, Alex, you can see.
I don't want to look at any more of this.
By the way, there's a lot more to this story. So if you do want to read about their wedding night, about their friends, please feel free to go to the story and just become lost in their romance.
Very nice. Rob, I've got another story here before we move on to our listener story. Is that what's next?
Yes.
From another, I did promise another local news story. This is from the Manchester Evening News, Rob.
Okay.
It is by Ashley Blakey from the 12th of January 2021. Drunken man tried to chat up air hostess on flight, threw Pringles around the cabin, passed out and then fell down the plane steps.
I mean, that sounds like an average night in Manchester.
That's what I thought. Okay, so Kieran Jones had been drinking alcohol before his flight from Manchester Airport to Budapest in Hungary in September 2019. Our second airport-related story, Rob, of the week.
Very true. Yeah.
This might be a first. After boarding the Jet 2 plane, the 27-year-old became flirtatious with one stewardess, telling her, in quotes, "You've got a right arse," and in quotes, "let me take you out." He went on to throw Pringle crisps around the cabin before passing out across 3 seats. Minshull Street Crown Court heard. I don't know if I said that right, and I apologise if I haven't.
Oh, Minshull, that's the court in Manchester, yeah.
Ah, I see.
Minshull Street.
Well, then you got one, have they?
I think it's a Crown Court, or I think both the Crown Court and the magistrates are together.
Jones, who's from Chester, was helped. That's a good Antarctic reference, wasn't it?
Nice reference, yeah. Enjoyed that.
Was helped off the plane once it had landed in Budapest, but fell down the stairs and landed face down. Today, he narrowly avoided being sent to prison after a court heard how he has since dealt with his alcohol problem. Prosecutor Wayne Jackson told the court how the incident occurred on board a Jet 2 flight on September 12th, 2019. I'm pleased he did that on September the 12th. You don't want to be mucking around on a plane or an airport any time on September the 11th. I mean, even to me, September the 12th is too near. On that flight, a female member of the cabin crew was working the rear section of the plane, not a euphemism, with another female crew member. During the first bar service, the defendant, who was travelling with a male friend, immediately became flirtatious with the stewardess and came across as trying to chat her up. After the stewardess had served them drinks, she moved down the plane but did not escape the defendant's attention. As she moved forward, he said, "You've got a right arse." She ignored him and remained professional and carried on serving other passengers. Once that service was over, she went back through the cabin to collect rubbish and he said to her, "Let me take you out." A short while later, he said, "She will do," to another cabin member. That's lovely.
What a charming individual.
Later on in the flight, the stewardesses were in the galley when a passenger approached them to tell them the defendant had thrown a plastic lid from a tub of Pringles at his head, the court was told.
Fuck's sake. What
Jones was then seen throwing crisps around and laughing, but when spoken to by cabin crew, denied throwing anything. He made inappropriate comments to the stewardess again, asking, "Where's my fiancée?" It was clear that he was very drunk. The defendant was only served 2 gin and tonics on board the flight, so he must have been drinking alcohol before, so he's pissed when he got on the flight, Rob. I don't drink, right, but I would, if I were to take up drinking, I would like to drink to make a flight go quicker. It just seems to be the perfect opportunity. If I had a really long flight, I'd like to just get absolutely bladdered and just pass out.
I understand that, but there's nothing. For me, that's the worst possible situation. I cannot understand why anyone will get drunk before getting on a flight. Because I struggle to sleep at the best of times, but then having to contend with jet lag and a hangover at the same time just makes me cringe. Good point.
Better to take the milk laced with sedatives, Mr. T style.
Exactly. You just take the morphine, you're dead. They have to, not literally dead, but you're dead to the world. They carry you off the plane and take you to a hotel.
Yeah.
Or hospital.
Or
one of the two.
Once the flight landed and the plane's doors had opened, the cabin crew went over to the defendant to find he had passed out over 3 seats. They helped him off the plane, though he was unsteady on his feet, and fell down the last 5 steps of the plane stairs, landing face down, Rob.
Alex, when you say they helped him off, do you reckon they just helped him to the door and then just let gravity do its thing?
Yeah. He was taken to the nearest hospital and arrested.
Bonza.
Mitigating defence lawyer Craig McGregor. There's an ITV show for you, McGregor. He defends those who cannot defend themselves, Rob.
Yep.
He said that his client, who had no previous convictions, is now a totally different person to whom he was when he committed the offence. The court was told how Jones had a severe drinking problem, which he has since got help for. When he came round after his trip, after his time in hospital, he knew how to deal with his problem, and he did, and he has, Mr. McGregor said. Sentencing Judge Mark Saville, no relation, said he was able to avoid sending Jones to prison by the narrowest of margins. But the judge said, had there been any aggression, physically or verbally, a requirement to restrain, or an interference by you with the physical part of the plane, then the defendant would have been sent to jail immediately. What a strange phrase. Had there been any interference by you with the physical part of the plane? Are there other parts of a plane that are non-physical, Rob? Are there more ethereal parts of a plane? What the fuck does that mean?
I think what he meant was that maybe the guy, if he'd got into maybe a compromising situation with, I don't know, a toilet door or something.
Right. Anyway, the judge said, I want to be very clear that it's only because of the particular facts of this case that you're not going to prison today, and it's by the narrowest of margins. The Trump added on September the 12th, 2019, well over a year ago now, you had a serious problem, and you were drinking strong alcohol to excess on a regular basis. You and a friend were taking a trip to Budapest. It's obvious before you got on this flight you were very much worse for wear and drunk. Let me emphasise that cabin crew and fellow passengers should not be subjected to loutish, boorish, drunken behaviour by people such as you on a plane, because there's nobody for because there is nowhere for anybody to go until the plane lands. I thought that was kind of part of the experience now, Rob. I mean, I'd like to know the percent. God almighty, I'd hate to be an air hostess. What's it called if I'm a male? It's not hostess, host. What is it called?
Steward?
No. Thank you. Air steward.
Yeah.
Yes. It's actually just one of my. That would be like. I know a lot of people are attracted to that job because they think, oh, you travel the world, but fucking hell, it looks grim.
I completely agree, and I think, I don't know, if I was to do it, you want to go for maybe for a better class airline as well, because I just imagine doing Ryanair or EasyJet, going to places like, I don't know, Torremolinos or some shit like that. I think it would be, because you just know that people are fucking hammered on the way there, probably on the way back as well, and it's not going to be a pleasant flight.
No. And the pilot could well be hammered too, Rob. Jones of Carter Street, Chester, admitted entering an aircraft when drunk. He was sentenced to a 2-year community order made up of 220 hours of unpaid work and 20 rehabilitation activity requirement days, and he had to pay £1,200 in court costs. The judge told him this is a period of your life that you will look back on with regret and shame. Now, there are some comments on the Manchester Evening News.
Oh, great.
So Handy Andy says, he looks as if he wouldn't be interested in ladies unless they were the ones who work in Funny Girls. He looks like a real savoury duck.
I'm assuming that's... I don't even know if that's sarcasm. I'm not entirely sure what he's implying.
I have to admit, Rob, I don't understand Manchester slang. Woof Woof Bang says he looks like he went to school on the yellow bus with square wheels, no need for window wipers, we have a bus full. Okay. Red Right says, legend in his own head, bet his mother is proud of how she raised him to respect women. Ratsamutley says, no chance he stopped drinking, leaving the house dressed like that. What a crank. Nancy Ryan says he looks like a right tar T. Don't know what that means. Presumably, again, Manchester slang. Hulky says he looks a bit simple. Brucey's wig says, ban him from flying. It's the only way people will learn. Steve Mank says his comedy outfit must have impressed the judge. And it just... BR1990 calls him a half scouse rat. Lovely. AKH calls him a tosser. And Fella One says, oi, you nicked your dad's shoes. And it goes on like that ad infinitum. Okay, Rob. Oh, shit. Hang on.
Right. Come on. We haven't got all day.
Rob,
how do you not have this to hand?
I can't find my purple rod, Rob.
Well, it's using your granny magazine.
So I just had a rummage and I found it. It's now time, Rob, for our... So let me get my finger positions correct. Listener story of the week. And Rob, who is it from?
So this week it is from Kyber.
He sells crystals on the market.
From... You sure? It is from the Chronicle Live, which I believe is County Durham and the North East, so I'm guessing Sunderland and Newcastle, etc. It is from the 8th of January by Kieran Murphy. And the headline: dog walker calls police after spotting human toe sticking out of ground, but it's potato.
Presumably it looks a bit like... Well, let's find out. Maybe his toe...
does.
Maybe his toes, Rob, look like potatoes, and so that's what he thinks a toe looks like.
I personally
Potato. Get it?
Why are you just shouting potato?
Well, it's just interesting that the word toe is within the word potato, and he mistook a potato for a toe.
I mean, I can definitely see that it looks. I mean, you can imagine that if there was an unfortunate soul buried beneath this ground, that maybe had been there for a couple of weeks, then you could imagine that it could be a decaying toe. I think it looks more like a sausage.
Or a penis. I mean, I'll be the judge when I see it for myself.
Maybe. Yeah, true. So a large-scale police response was sparked after a dog walker spotted a human toe sticking out of the ground, only for it to be a potato. Police were called after a woman discovered a suspected toe buried in a muddy field in Winlaton, Gateshead, on Tuesday afternoon.
Rob, I'm looking at the fucking picture. That's a fucking potato.
To you, maybe, Alex.
Why didn't he bend? Or it looked like a mushroom. Why didn't he bend down and touch it? Give it a little wiggle.
But Alex, would you do that if you spotted something that looked like a toe? Would the first thing you'd do instinctively is to bend down and try and give it a wiggle?
Yeah, before I called the police, I would inspect it. I would. And if it kind of came up, and if it sort of broke off, and I could see sort of flesh and bone, like sort of rigor mortis had set in, then I'd call the police. But I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't just call the police, Rob. They've got better things to do.
Maybe the potato was very suspicious. Who can say? So she took a picture of the toe.
I'd probably give it a lick too.
Well, of course.
You always want to give it the taste test, Rob.
Decaying corpse, potato.
Yeah.
She took a picture of the toe and returned home before sending it to the police.
Sorry, say that again. Say that again. She what?
So she took a picture of the toe. She took a picture of it, then went home before calling the police.
Suspicious.
Detectives agreed that it appeared to be a human foot, and they deployed specialist police dogs and search teams to scour the area.
Okay, I'm very sorry. I want to apologise, Rob. I have looked at a better resolution of this image. That looks like a fucking toe sitting out of the ground.
Thank you.
I would have given it a wiggle.
So after searching for hours, officers discovered it wasn't a body part at all. The toe was in fact a potato with a mushroom going next to it. Which is a lovely detail, which is completely unnecessary. Is there a mushroom? Can we see a mushroom going next to it?
No, I don't see no mushroom.
No, I can't see a mushroom.
The only mushroom I see is on your screen. I wish you put it away. I don't know why you've got to have it out during the call.
It likes the sun.
Right. There's no sun, Rob.
No, I know. I just like having it out. So, Neighbourhood Inspector, which is a great title, Neighbourhood Inspector. Does sound like he inspects neighbourhoods. Anyway, Neighbourhood Inspector Phil Halani.
It's a very low-level job in the police, that, Rob, isn't it? Isn't it, though? We're giving you Neighbourhood Inspector. It
does sound like they didn't want to make him an actual inspector. They gave him Neighbourhood. It was a compromise.
Where did Rob? You again, another job Rob did. Would work for the police for a time. Where does inspector come from as a title? It seems. I mean, I know. What was it meant to mean? Was it meant to mean like almost like detective? Like. It does what it says on the tin. You're an inspector. You inspect things.
Well, it's just a rank, because I think it's one above sergeant. So you get officer or constable, sergeant, inspector. It's just a rank. But yeah, I think you would obviously inspect a crime.
The hierarchy in police force is very confusing.
Yeah, I know.
What were you, Rob? Were you a sergeant? Were you a chief? Were you an inspector? Were you a corporal?
There's no corporals in the police act. I don't like to talk about Alex, but at one stage I was a deputy commissioner. Only for a short period. I don't like to talk about it really. So Neighbourhood Inspector Phil Halani of Northumbria Police. Northumbria, there we are, said the call was made in good faith and encouraged others to report any suspicious activity. The person who called this was very concerned, and the picture she sent to us did look like it could be human remains. It was already dark by the time we got the call, and so we had to deploy search teams to track down the scene to rule out any foul play. I mean, you know the rest.
But she could have saved everybody a lot of time and effort just by moving a bit of the mud aside and seeing if there was a foot underneath there. Why? Are you not meant to do that because it's a crime scene? Is that right? Because I guess maybe I wouldn't wiggle it or lick it because I'd think that might incriminate myself. I'd want my fingerprints on the toe.
Yeah, good point actually. Or your exactly, or your DNA because you've licked it. I mean that probably is going to cause a lot more questions than answers. Right.
That's it. Sorry, it came to a rather abrupt end. Rob, you said you had a list you wanted to talk to me about.
Yeah. Now, Alex, we have these lists every so often, and we do enjoy a listicle. And I happened to spot this one in the Manchester Evening News today.
Well, there was a period of time, wasn't there, Rob, in local news journalism where they all just ran with lists. It became the big thing. There was I can't remember what year it was. I want to say 2014. I'm plucking that out of the air. But it was where every other story was a fucking list.
Yeah, that's true. And it could be...
Do you remember, Rob, we had a paper where they literally sent out a journalist to observe what he saw on his lunch break and write about it?
Yes.
Do you remember that? I can't remember what paper that was, but he'd go to like the town centre and he'd just say, saw a woman giving her daughter an ice cream, saw a dog licking a cat. It was the most...
I want to say that the articles were called Lunchtime Lives.
They were.
Or Lunchtime Life or something along those lines, yeah. And it was the most tedious dross.
But do you remember the other local news feature that one paper did where they sent that poor journalist round? It was meant to go on indefinitely, but it ran for about 5 weeks and they shelved it, where he'd go out every Friday and sample a fish and chip shop. And then he'd write about it. Do you remember the chip reviews?
Alex, that for me, that was a highlight of the podcast. that was the pinnacle. That's, we've never reached those highs again.
True.
Right, okay, so this list for the Manchester Evening News, here is the headline: the strangest items left behind in Manchester's travel lodge hotels. Now,
brilliant. Now you've got to let me guess. Some. So how many's in the list?
So the list was actually quite long. So I've actually narrowed it down to my favourite items. One second. Oh, there's actually 20 here.
Okay, if I get 5 out of the 20. I get a free hand shandy.
How about we compromise and I'll send you a shandy bass?
Fine. Right. A sex doll. Deflated.
No.
Are these going to be impossible to get? Are they too obscure?
Not all of them.
Okay, cash. Like £200 in cash or something like that. Quite a sizable amount of cash just left.
No, there's no cash on this list.
Gold bullion.
Oh, sorry, there is cash on this list. I do apologise. So there was a lucky penny.
Oh, okay. Well, I said quite a lot of cash, so it doesn't really count. I'm going to give up. I'm going to forego the hand shandy.
Right.
You're not very tender anyway. You're a bit rough, so I'll just...
I'll be using hand cream.
It's fine, but go on.
Okay. So, a Barbie dream house.
Sorry, let me absorb these. Somebody left the Barbie dream house. What? First of all, were they staying alone in that hotel room with the Barbie dream house?
Oh, God.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A suitcase full of boxed Indian sweets.
Okay, that's understandable. That's an innocent mistake.
Yeah, okay. A vintage bird cage.
There's a lot of episode titles in here, by the way. A vintage bird cage. Right.
Yep. A didgeridoo.
Was there a bird?
No.
Oh, right, okay.
Just a cage.
A didgeridoo. You can have a lot of fun. You and a didgeridoo in a hotel room.
Yep. A script for a play.
Right.
Which I just love. Is so bizarre.
I want to read that play.
Yeah.
Was it called One Man in a Didgeridoo in a hotel room?
Brilliant, Alex. Brilliant. And this is what I hope it is. I hope this is someone has penned in the bleakness of this hotel room. An R2-D2 robot.
Oh, that's that.
This one's a bit obscure. A William Shakespeare outfit and skull.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. We need to examine. I don't know why you waited to the end of this podcast to feature this brilliant story. This is going to require a lot of discussion.
Oh, it gets better.
We're going to put the skull to one side for the time being.
Yeah.
What is a William Shatner outfit? If it said Captain
William Shakespeare.
Oh,
William Shakespeare outfit.
So I heard you say a William Shatner outfit and a skull. Okay. Okay. So is this some sort of weird cosplay thing? And what's the skull about?
I really hope so. Well, because
I reckon...
I mean, if you think of Hamlet,
right,
he has the skull.
Now, I reckon they dress up as Shakespeare, masturbate, but they like to be watched by a dead person. That's what the skull is. Well, that's what I do when I go to the Travel Lodge in Manchester. So
that's so dark.
In fact, I think that's mine. Is it still in Lost and Found?
I think you can still collect it if you'd like.
Right.
But if you're going to do it anywhere, to do something as niche as that, you would do it in a travel lodge.
Yeah.
A 6-foot cuddly polar bear. A 6-year-old marriage certificate.
A 6-year-old marriage certificate? To who?
60-year-old. 60-year-old marriage certificate.
Was it to the polar bear?
It doesn't say, unfortunately. There's no further details. A stethoscope.
Well, yeah, that's in case the whoever you're with passes out and you need to check if they're still alive.
Now, the next one is the most interesting for me.
Right.
And please brace yourself for this.
I'm braced.
A Siberian husky called Saskia.
What, she's still alive?
Now, I have a feeling that Sasha was I may be wrong, I think she was a husky.
Yeah, now, Rob is referencing a man who split up with his wife who had a pet dog called Sasha, and to get back at her, he slept with the dog and she caught him in the act. It could have been. You think Sasha's been abandoned?
I'm saying
she's damaged goods, Rob.
I think the husband's checked in with this dog, given her a false name, Saskia, very close. So, they can have some time together.
Right.
I just did the last few. A message in the bottle which has a wedding proposal.
Rob, how would I ever have gotten any of these? Right, okay.
A suitcase full of board games. Which, by the way, has to be the episode title.
What, a suitcase full of board games? Yes. Yeah. It's like a fistful of dollars. What is it? A fistful of dreams? No, what's that? What's it called?
Fistful of dollars.
Yeah, fistful of dollars. In this case, a suitcase full of broken dreams. Sorry, broken board games. I like suitcase full of broken board games, by the way. But
yeah.
But a suitcase full of board games.
Yeah. 2 first-class tickets to the Maldives. A psychology, politics, and economics degree from Oxford University.
Sorry, that PPE degree is a big deal.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Right. That could set you up for life. A Swarovski wedding crown. A diary belonging to a nurse.
Right, that's worrying.
A small army of 6-foot-tall nutcracker soldiers, and a lucky penny.
These weren't all found in the same room on the same night, were they?
I mean, I wish they were. Rob, that is a party right there.
Rob, can you remind me what the first 3 items were?
A Barbie dream house, a suitcase full of boxed Indian sweets, and a vintage birdcage.
Can we have a Barbie dream house and a suitcase full of board games as the episode title?
Of course we can. Yes, of course we can.
Right, Rob. Okay, look, that brings us to the end of this episode of LA Podcast, episode 331. We're about to move on to our headlines, which never made it, but of course, Rob, we look forward with a mixture of eager anticipation, yet trepidation, to our next episode, Rob, which, as I say, is going to be episode 331, as we move ever more forward, Rob, as we move ever more forward. I want to do something about the man in the airport, but he didn't really move anywhere, did he?
No. Well, he did. He obviously he was begging for food, and as he maybe scuttled around the terminal, but yeah.
As we move ever more forward, like a man scuttling around a terminal for 3 months, trying to avoid detection, perusing the requisite like sort of newsagent type shop, Double H Smith's. You'd get, after 3 months, you would have pretty much read all those magazines, Rob.
Yeah, I must. If I was living in an airport, I think I would just go straight for the top shelf.
Just like that, we move ever more forward to our next episode, which will be 331. We're on our website, lapodcast.net. From there you can download all of our previous episodes if you want to download them manually. But I suspect most of you are listening on a podcast app, so if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or any of the other podcast apps, whatever you're using, subscribe, leave us a review if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate that. We're on Spotify, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/LA Podcast. We're on Twitter @LA Podcast. If you want to submit us a story and be featured on the podcast, then you can tweet it to us at LA Podcast. You can post it on Facebook, or you can email us the good old-fashioned way, lapodcast.net@gmail.com. That is lapodcast.net@gmail.com. Rob, time for the headlines, which never made it. I've got 6.
Oh, I've only got 3.
You better start then.
Okay. Man with huge tattoo of Boris Johnson says he'll never regret it.
You will. You will.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
Undoubtedly, you will. Yeah.
Okay, go. Give us another one, Rob.
Okay, now this story, I'm just going to be a bit of context to this. I picked this story off the Mirror last week. I was going to feature it, but I went back on there today and it has disappeared, which makes me believe it could have been a crock of shit. So here's the headline. I tried instant noodles that were so spicy I almost went deaf for a few days. Now, it's the qualifier almost went deaf for a few days, which I really liked.
Yeah. Okay. Thief steals Salvation Army donation kettle, poses as volunteer to collect money. And we've all done it, Rob.
Right. Okay.
I love this headline. I'm sorry I didn't read the story out. It wasn't actually worth it. It was too short. It was from... Rob, you got married, as I remember, in a place called Sudbury.
That's right.
But this is Sudbury, I believe, in Canada, if there is one in Canada.
There is. It's actually just outside Toronto.
Oh, right.
It's not too far away.
Fight between father and son escalated into sword attack, North Bay police say.
Oh, wow. That literally escalated quickly.
Yeah, go on. Your headline.
Very long johns of the Bradford Giants sell for £550.
Right. Who the fuck would want those? Okay.
Alex, can I just say, he was a giant. He was 8'4". He was tall, and someone bought his long johns.
Okay. 190,000 ceiling fans recalled because the blades detach and fly off.
Amazing.
Virginia man finds stolen 1969 Camaro after 17 years. This was his car that had been stolen 17 years ago, and he just came across it.
Wow.
Sarah Jessica Parker perfume behind kangaroo attack. A woman thinks the kangaroo attacked her because she was wearing Sarah Jessica Parker perfume.
Okay.
And last headline, Rob, from the Oregon Live. Oregon man sues, alleging he went to doctor for distress over his marital woes, only to find out the physician was having an affair with his wife.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It is. Okay, look, Rob, we've both enjoyed doing this. I've enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed it?
I always enjoy it, Alex.
Good, and I've enjoyed your company today, Rob. And we've enjoyed the company of our listeners. Thank you very much for listening. We're going to be back in a week's time with Daft Talk episode 23. Let's get the numbering right, Rob. And a week after that, it will be LA Podcast episode 332. God bless.
And keep it local.